Great motion shouldn't be an afterthought. It's what transforms a good digital experience into a memorable one. With Figma Motion, you can create, refine, and ship animations without ever leaving your design file. In this video, we'll walk through everything you need to get started. The best way to learn motion design is to start animating. So open up a design file and follow along. Start by adding a frame to the canvas with a basic rectangle inside. We'll have that moving before this video is over. You can access Figma Motion in any design file by switching the toolbar toggle to Motion. Once enabled, you'll see the same Figma editor you're used to with a few key changes. Most notably is the timeline along the bottom of the screen. This is where you'll add, refine, and preview your animations. To zoom in and out of the timeline, use this slider, pinch or spread 2 fingers on your trackpad, or hold the modifier key while using your mouse wheel. You can also click and drag the top of the timeline to resize it, or click Collapse Timeline to minimize it. Now that we're more familiar with the timeline, we can start adding animations. Select the rectangle you created earlier. With an object selected, you can now see an animation section in the right sidebar, along with new keyframe controls next to each property. The animation section is where you can browse pre-built animations that let you quickly apply common motion effects like position, scale, or rotation without having to worry about adding individual keyframes. We'll add an opacity animation to our rectangle so that it fades into view over the course of 1000 milliseconds, or 1 second. Once you add an animation, you'll also see it reflected on the timeline. From here, you can click and drag the layer track to reposition it on the timeline, or select the handles on either side of the track to change the animation's duration. Now that we've added an animation, we can preview it by clicking play or pressing spacebar. Looks good! You can adjust the length of the timeline by clicking and dragging this handle, or from the duration field in the timeline controls. Let's set the timeline duration to 1200 milliseconds. The timeline controls also let you move the playhead to a specific point in time, change the units displayed on the timeline, and toggle between different playback modes. The playback is currently set to loop, so the animation will repeat until we press pause or hit spacebar again. For more granular control, you can manually add keyframes to the timeline. A keyframe marks a point in time where you set a specific value for a layer property, such as opacity, position, or rotation. When you set a second keyframe for the same property but with a different value, Figma Motion will animate the transition between them. Let's try that out together. Grab the playhead and move it to the start of the timeline. This is where we'll add our first keyframe. You'll notice that the rectangle layer is no longer visible. That's because the fade-in animation hasn't started at this point on the timeline. But we can still select the layer, even if it isn't currently visible. Click the diamond icon next to the rotation field in the right sidebar to add a new keyframe to the start of the timeline. We won't change the value here because we want it to rotate over the course of the animation. Move the playhead to the 1000 millisecond mark and click the diamond again to add another keyframe. This will sync our rotation with the fade-in animation we applied earlier. This time, we'll change the rotation value to 180. Then we'll press spacebar to see how the rotation looks as the animation plays. If you want to preview an animation on its own, you can hide other animations on the timeline by clicking the eye icon next to the animation name. For faster keyframe creation, you can enable Auto-keyframe. While active, updating any property in the right sidebar or adjusting an object on the canvas will automatically add new keyframes to the timeline. Let's see that in action. Move the playhead to the 1000 millisecond mark. You can hold Shift to align it with the other keyframe we added earlier. With Auto-keyframe enabled, click and drag the rectangle to the right of the screen. You'll notice that a new set of position keyframes is automatically added to the timeline. Go ahead and press spacebar to preview the changes. Great work! Before moving on, click to disable Auto-keyframe so it doesn't add any additional keyframes. Keyframes define what changes and when. Easing defines how it gets there by controlling whether an animation accelerates, decelerates, or both. It's what separates motion that looks correct from motion that feels correct. To see how much of a difference the correct easing can make, take a look at these two examples. The first uses linear movement, or motion that is the same from start to finish. The second uses an ease in and out curve. Notice how it starts slowly, builds speed through the middle, then settles into its final position. That subtle shift is what makes the motion feel grounded rather than mechanical. Now that we know the principles behind easing, let's take a look at the easing controls in Figma Motion. To adjust easing, select an animation on the timeline and open the easing drop-down menu, or click the line in between two keyframes. From here, you can either select a default easing curve or use the curve editor to create a custom one. Custom curves let you go beyond standard motion and create bespoke movement that matches your product's personality. When used consistently, that character becomes part of your brand's motion language. Custom curves can be saved as variables, making them reusable across your entire design system. To learn more about variables and custom curves, check out our Help Center. Let's adjust the easing on our position animation. Click the line between the two keyframes and select Ease in and out back from the menu. Now, our rectangle moves with a bit more expressiveness before settling into its final position. As your animations become more ambitious, the Figma agent can help handle the heavy lifting so you can focus on the craft. Describe the motion you're after, and let the agent add the initial keyframes. Then fine-tune the details directly on the timeline, or re-prompt the agent until the motion is just right. This can be a real time saver, especially for complex or repetitive animations. For example, I can prompt the agent to create a number counter animation that uses an easing variable from my design system. In just a few moments, it gives me a solid starting point that I can keep refining until I'm happy. And because the animation is a component, I can reuse it across all of my designs. Once you're happy with how everything moves, it's time to get it into the hands of your developers. Dev mode eliminates the guesswork and gives developers a complete picture of what you built, so nothing gets lost in translation. The read-only timeline lets developers scrub through and inspect the animation at full fidelity. From there, they can copy the underlying code in whatever format fits their workflow: CSS for standard animation code, React for framework-ready implementation, or JSON for raw timing values. Figma Motion is also MCP compatible, so you can pass your full animation context, including keyframes, timing, and easing, directly to your coding agent using the Figma MCP server. And if you want to share your animation with others, or save a copy outside of Figma, you can also export it in a variety of different formats. That's everything you need to get started with Figma Motion. Now you're ready to get your own projects moving. To learn more about Figma Motion, check out the resources linked in the video's description, including the Motion Design Fundamentals collection, which covers the concepts behind effective motion design and includes hands-on projects to keep you moving forward.